Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. How's it going? Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. How's everyone doing? Good, bad, medium? Yeah, are you happy? Hi, Renee. Okay, grumble pants. Grumble, grumble, grumble. Grumble, grumble, grumble. Yes, you're grumbly. Are you so grumbly and tumbly? Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Can you say, I'm so rumbly in my tumbly time for something sweet? Yeah, can you say that? You can't, huh? No. Less than 1 hour of sleep. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. You know, we were also on a wavelength like that, Renee. Secret Baby and I were up on wackadoodle schedules as well. I know, I can understand that. How is Fever Town going, Miss Renee? Oh my gosh, my hair looks a mess. How is Fever Town? Have we come back down from our fever? Have we? I know he was on the mend, but like, is it better? Morning, Jen. Yes. Are you done? Okay. I can tuck myself back in. We were eating. Yes, he's better. Oh, good. What's he at now? What fever is he? If you know, if you know what I mean. Obviously, he's his mother. Of course, you know. Kind of a crazy thing is that for me to say. If you know. If you know, you know. You know what Renee did for us? She gave us suggestions of better wraps so that you can be tied to mommy in a more secure way. What do you think of that, Miss Lady? You feel good about that? You feel good about more secure wraps? Oh, well, if he's at school, then yeah. Renee, that one that I sent you, stunning. I saw another rainbow one, having trouble deciding between them. They're so beautiful. I can't wait to get one and learn how to use it properly and have her strapped a little better. This one's nice. It's just a little bit loosey-loosey, you know? Tell me more about that. Good morning, Naisa. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. According to TikTok, the duration of this live, according to TikTok, the duration of this live is already 35% longer than most creators. Haven't we been on like 5 minutes? What are people doing if they're only getting on for 35% less than 5 minutes? Do they just like jump on, jump off? She grunts a lot, and she's not even 3 weeks old yet. know, Grunty Pants, I know. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Tell me more about that. You accidentally hit a button. What button was it? Hi. Oh, they accidentally turned on the live. That's what you're saying. She sounds so sweet. Nothing like sleeping on mom. Yeah, she almost exclusively sleeps on mom, huh? Huh. 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 Yeah. I did. I had a baby. It's true. It is true. Yes, yes, yes. She is 13 days old today. No, not 13 days old. Sorry, 15 days old today. Yes, her tummy is growing. She just ate. She was actually eating at the beginning of this live. I had her tucked in and eating in the wrap because I am getting really good at multitasking. Yeah. So I was feeding her and making coffee at the same time. I'm doing well, Haley. I have to put you guys down for 2 seconds. Okay. So yeah, she definitely just ate. Like the just of justices. She ate at 8 o'clock for 20 minutes, and then at the beginning of this live, she was also eating. As you can tell from the look of my hair, all I do is feed her. I don't wash my hair. But I did dye it, so. Yeah. We are fully asleep and grumbling in our sleep. Oh, thank you, Haley. I appreciate that. Hey, Liz. Coffee was so necessary, you guys. So necessary. Last night, we were definitely in an eat every hour or less phase. So sleep was elusive. Oh, you know what? I have showered every day. Yeah, I didn't wash my hair. Exactly. The color stays longer. But I have showered. I have showered every day. I just haven't washed my hair. And the truth of the matter is, oh, that's exciting, Anya. The truth is, even before baby, I didn't wash my hair every day because it's just not good for your hair when you have the type of hair I have. So, yeah. A Secret Husband and I have tried to be really good about at least showering and stuff. But I will tell you, when she is in, yes, you absolutely can, Naisa. When she is in these little clusters, it is harder for me to shower. And the reason for that is I try to feed her really fast right before I run and get in the shower. But even if I shower fast, she's hungry again by the time I get out. So what happened on Saturday is they decided that they were going to do their third ritual or whatever it was going to be, and all the women went to this cemetery and they're about to start a ritual, and there is Mr. Gideon Hill with a whole bunch of cops because someone ratted them out. Now, there is some debate about this. I don't know if Avery is on yet, but Avery is on the side of thinking that Cleopatra Quinn ratted them out. I am hoping that Miss Cleo Quinn was not the one that ratted them out, but she was there, and she did, at the very end of the chapter, slap a hand over Bella's mouth and say, be quiet and let's get out of here. So, like, she was there, not with them, but, like, in the vicinity, and is trying to help. But Bella did think, right before that happened, that Cleopatra ratted them out. Real big bummer, right? Big bummer. If she's the one who ratted them out, I would not like to see that. I know, that's what I said, Naisa. That's literally, yeah. Beans was, I know, we were all disappointed to hear it. But we don't know that that happened yet. It was alluded to, but nothing has been made official yet. So don't get down on Cleo just yet, you guys. We don't know that she did it.
we do know from a story that Frankie, one of the other women in the Sisters of Avalon, told Bella, it is an understanding that Cleo and her husband have, and Cleo fraternizes with other ladies, you know, wink wink, right? They didn't call it being a lesbian back then, but let's just call a spade, right? I don't know if there was, I think those were all the really important things. Oh, what's his name came to call on Juniper with some flowers, and that was pretty funny, but nothing happened yet. He just showed up with flowers. Do you want to read? Should we read some? Should we read chapter 18? Yeah, it's a long chapter, so we're only going to go do one today because we have a doctor's appointment, and this is a long chapter. It's a 40-minute chapter, so it's pretty much going to take us right to the end of book club anyway. And then we're going to go to our 2-week checkup and see if we gained back our birth weight. Do you think we got to birth weight? Did we do it? I hope so. Mommy's been feeding you a lot, so I hope you did. I did have a baby. She is just a little over 2 weeks old. She's brand new. Yeah. She's brand spanking new, if you can believe that. She is 16 days old today. And we're getting her 2-week checkup today. Yeah, thank you. All right, chapter 18. May she snatch me through the doors of hell and take me down with her to dwell. A spell for opening certain doors, requiring stars and scars. Standing in the stale dark of a tomb, surrounded by the muffled stamp of boots, and held tight against the woman she is reasonably sure is her enemy, Beatrice Belladonna thinks of several questions she would like to ask. What are you doing here? Seems like a logical starting place, or maybe, why did you betray us? But instead she says something like, grrr, because Miss Cleopatra Quinn's hand is still clamped around her jaw. She wriggles, and Quinn very slightly shifts, lifting her palm in a cautious inch away from Beatrice's lips. Miss Quinn, she hisses. What, how, are there coffins in here? Beatrice can't see Quinn's expression because her back is pressed against her chest, and also because the tomb is a lightless black of the space between the stars. The air feels thick and sour on her skin. A stale breeze exhales from somewhere. Why, no. What are you? Quinn cuts her off with a low rasp in her ear. Not here, she says. But Beatrice doesn't understand where they might find opportunity to talk, as the cemetery is full of baton-wielding witch hunters, and the sun will soon be rising. She imagines spending an entire day in the tomb, a grown woman reduced to a little girl locked in the dark again. Panic claws up her throat. Listen, I can't stay here. I have to get out. That wind blows again, and it's damp as the breath on her neck. Quinn's arms unwrap from her chest. One palm rests lightly on her shoulder. Hold on. Beatrice hears the shush of the fabric and the snick of a struck match before her eyes sting with sudden light. Quinn touches the match to the narrow tip of a wooden wand. She whispers the words, and the wand glows a rich tiger's eye gold. Oh, Miss Cleopatra Quinn is a little bit of a witch too, but has not been letting on. Okay. Her face emerges from the blackness like a fire-lit dream, all dark hollows and honey-eyed plains with the witch light burning in her eyes. The light spreads, filling every cobwebbed corner of the mausoleum, and Beatrice discovers why she felt a breeze blowing inside of the stone tomb. Stairs? Her voice is an octave higher than she'd like it to be. Quinn holds a finger to her lips and turns back to the door. Yeah? Are we just grumbling in our sleep for everything? Yeah. Yeah. Would you like to read the book instead of Mommy? Okay. All right. Quinn holds a finger to her lip and turns back to the door. She sings a sort of hymn and presses her wrist. It's a scarred wrist, pocked with white slashes and white circles against the aged wood. Heat flares, driving back the damp chill of the tomb. A lock creeps into place. She absolutely has a lot to say. I don't think the book's ever going to end, you guys. We're only at 38%. Oh no, I can't make slime in a few, unfortunately. I have to hold this baby, and then I gotta take her to the doctor, you know? Then Quinn takes Beatrice's hand in hers and pulls her down the narrow steps and into the long serpentine tunnel that runs beneath New Salem Cemetery. For a long time after they descend, Beatrice hears nothing except for the nervous pant of her own breath and the shush of her skirts along the dirt, and sometimes the scuttle of some many long-legged creatures dodging Quinn's wand light. Several times she knocks her head on the sloping ceiling or scrapes an elbow along the wall, but no dirt shakes loose. The tunnel walls feel smooth and unyielding, as if they were carved from granite rather than clay or root-ridden soil. There are no struts or beams, no wooden trusses beneath her trailing fingers. Beatrice grew up in Crow County, and she knows about mine shafts and cave-ins enough to understand that this is impossible. What is this place? Her own voice sounds overly loud, shouting back at her from the too close walls. Why, Quinn answers with a showman's sweep of her wands, this is the Underground Railroad, of course. Oh. Well, I didn't know that was going to come into play. We made it to the Underground Railroad, you guys. I literally had no idea that was going to happen. Really? You mean these tunnels go as far as... Quinn's laughter echoes through the tunnel. Oh, no, not really. Saints, no one dug a hole all the way to Canada. Oh, she lied to us. Never mind, I got excited for nothing. Her shadow flickers and she shakes her head. These tunnels are only under New Salem. Oh, Beatrice says intelligently. This city was built in a huge hurry. Did you know that? Beatrice did know that. After the burning of Old Salem, there had been a great rush to rebuild, and as if the fresh-paved streets were ropes to bind the unruly past, City Hall and the college were built within a year, along with half a dozen churches, all those boring square houses on North End. Who do you suppose built all that? Beatrice has read a number of pamphlets and historical texts about the founding of the city, but she can't recall anything about the workers. I don't know. I suppose that it must have been slaves. Quinn's tone is perfectly even, but her spine is rigid. Slaves, in a nation that so recently fought for freedom. Slaves, building the city without sin. Beatrice feels a queasy flick of shame. Oh, I didn't... But their work was plagued with delays and setbacks, missing tools, mistakes, because they were busy building something else, beneath all the marble and money, something that would let them move through the city without fear, whenever they pleased. Quinn gestures with the wand at the end, this tunnel around them, smooth and hollow, and a burrow of something vast snakes through. They taught their sons and daughters, the secret was passed down to us. Beatrice is quiet for several steps before asking softly, who is us? Quinn stops walking. Her shoulders lift and fall with a steady sigh. Well, the daughters of Tituba. If her voice wasn't so flat, so entirely empty of humor or mockery, Beatrice would think she was being laughed at. It's like claiming to be a vampire or a Valkyrie or a monster out of some kind of myth. The daughters of Tituba were a rumor, a whisper, a penny paper story. They were the reason that husbands went ashtray and graves were robbed. In the least reputable papers, they were drawn with bones tied in their hair and teeth strung around their throats, red-lipped and wild. The last living descendants of the Black Witch of Old Salem, the captions would read. Still hungry for vengeance? Miss Quinn does not possess a necklace of teeth or a bone hairpiece. Well, not as far as Beatrice knows. And if she hungers for anything, it's only the same small, impossible thing that Beatrice wants, which is the truth, laid bare, and the story told straight. I didn't think that they were real. Oh, real enough. Quinn is standing with her back to Beatrice. I wanted to tell you, truly I did, but we're sworn to silence on the graves of our mothers and their mothers from across the sea. I just couldn't tell you. But Frankie said, oh. Beatrice recalls the other interests and everything she thought that implied. She finds her embarrassment overcome by a sudden buoyancy. It's not the Colored League, and it's not a string of lovers after all. Quinn turns her head. Frankie Black? We spoke. I understood. I mean, that is, I thought, and she were... Quinn's eyebrows are higher than usual. We were, but I made it clear that the daughters came first, and she objected to that. Oh, Beatrice, I'm so sorry. Beatrice doesn't think she's ever heard Quinn apologize. She half reaches for her before she remembers what else Quinn ought to be sorry for. She makes her voice cold and hard, pretending that her flesh is stone once more. We were betrayed. They were waiting for us, and Juniper... Her breath catches. Agnes and the others ran, but I don't know how far they made it. She feels a distant spark in her middle sister, and she knows that she, at least, is safe. Quinn's mouth is grim. Her shoulders are heavy. I'm sorry, she says again. Was it you? The words come out ragged and bloody as if they run through a dense briar on their way to her lips. Did you tell the police? Make some deal or a trade with them? Miss Quinn's eyes go wide. She takes a careful breath before saying very slowly and soberly, the daughters have been interested in the lost ways of Avalon for a very long time. So much of our power was stolen from us, although we kept more than you thought. The idea that it might be restored to us in a single instant, well, when the tower was called to the square, I was sent to investigate the suffragists, and I found you, a librarian with a clever face and hungry eyes, who knew more than she ought to. So I assisted you, pursued and encouraged you. Her eyes flicked over Beatrice's face, furtive and guilty. Because you were ordered to? Well, yes. It should feel like a victory, the hero forcing the spy to confess her sins, but Beatrice feels nothing but an oily shame. To think that she believed Miss Quinn was interested in her friendship. She never thought that Miss Quinn was interested in friendship. Beatrice wishes without much hope that the tunnel will collapse and bury her before she cries, but instead she hears a soft curse and Quinn's fingers clasp hard around her wrist. I spied on you. I lied to you. I told the daughters everything that you discovered or planned or even suspected. Quinn's voice thickens, low and urgent. But Beatrice, I swear, it wasn't me who betrayed you. The tunnel fails to collapse, and Beatrice cries a small, blurred voice, and she begins, Then who? But breaks off. She thinks of Agnes, hard-eyed and even harder-hearted, who would do anything at all to save her own skin. But if she betrayed them, why had she come tonight? And what about the oath they all swore with the finger pricks and crossed hearts, whose breaking would certainly have been obvious rather than gruesome effects? Beatrice swallowed a knot of salt and snot. Why did you come, then? Well, for the same reason I came to your first two spectacles, because you, the sisters, were walking into harm's way, and I wanted to be there in case they needed me. Miss Quinn, a brash liar, the spy who wielded charms like an edged weapon, cannot quite meet Beatrice's eyes as she says it. And where are you taking me now? To your superiors? Am I a captive? Quinn lets go of her wrist very quickly. No, never. I'm not. She looks tired and sorry, stripped bare. Saints, I've butchered this. I'm trying to say that I'm sorry and I will not lie to you again. I remain a faithful daughter. Beatrice hears the capital D and the weight of a century of secrets and witching. But I do hope to become a sister too. That is, if you'll have me. Beatrice just stands there looking into Quinn's yellow eyes. 1,000, she thinks. She wonders if trust, once lost, can ever truly be found again, and if she's being foolish. 1,000. She decides she doesn't care, and maybe trust is neither lost nor found, broken nor mended, but merely given. She decided, despite the risk, 1,000. I'm afraid I left my notebook in my office, Beatrice murmurs in a slightly underwater voice, but I believe there's room on the roster for you. Quinn smiles wide and relieved, witchlight dancing in her eyes. Beatrice clears her throat and adds, Does this tunnel come out anywhere near the college? The mischief returns to Quinn's smile, curling the corners and adding a devilish pair of dimples. She turns and strides deeper into the dark, not directly. Have you heard of the night market of New Cairo? Sorry, wrong voice. No, not directly. Have you heard of the night market of New Cairo, Miss Eastwood? The tunnel branches and spreads like the root of a hollow tree. They turn right and then right again. Twice Quinn stops to sing them past locked doors or other, less visible barriers. And once she pricks Beatrice's finger and dabs her blood on the pale stone before they walk on. The walls turn slick and wet for a while, cold as a river bottom, and then they climb upward again. They pass the steps leading up to every possible entryway, sewer grates and narrow closets, trap doors, granite slabs that would take witchcraft to move aside. The doors are marked with strange signs, arrangements of stars and lines rather than words. Beatrice is aware that she ought to be investigating and questioning and possibly taking notes, but she feels dull and heavy, as if the line leading to Juniper is an anchor pulling her under. Quinn rises in front of her, and Beatrice follows her up a narrow staircase. The steps are stone, softened and scooped with years of use, leading to an ordinary-looking door. Leading to an ordinary-looking door. Quinn hesitates before it, glancing back at Beatrice with a calculating expression. Hi, honey. She unfastens her cloak and tosses it over Beatrice's shoulder instead. Bella tries very hard not to notice the heat of her fingertips as she pulls the hood high and tucks stray hairs beneath it. Tuck your hands in your sleeves, please. No need to start talk. The door opens to an alleyway, velvet blue and fresh smelling after an hour spent deep beneath the city. And it's not yet dawn. The moon is still a silver dollar above them, but the alley is crammed full of people, women with white wraps over their hair and gold flashing bangles on their wrists, men wearing linen cloaks and swinging canes, the white flash of teeth and the blue shine of skin. Stalls line both walls, overflowing with wares, clinking with coins, a marketplace held here by moonlight. Beatrice is too busy staring and blinking to hear what Quinn is saying. She gives her hood a sharp tug. The daughters ought to know what happened at the cemetery tonight. Oh, sorry. Quinn is talking. The daughters ought to know what happened at the cemetery tonight. Might I make another report? And Beatrice just nods. Quinn catches the eye of a woman standing just outside the doors, arms crossed. Is she in? The woman gives a half bow that must mean yes. Quinn turns left, and Beatrice trails behind her. Her head is bent to hide the freckled milk of her face. During the daylight visits to New Cairo, she felt noticed, perhaps a little out of place, but she's never felt so thoroughly foreign as she does now. She wonders if this is how Quinn feels on the North End, as if her skin has transformed into an unreliable map bound to lead people to all sorts of wrong conclusions. She stalls as they pass and seem to contain both ordinary contraband. The stalls they pass seem to contain both ordinary contraband, including home-brewed liquor and home-cooked remedies in brown glass jars and crates of cigars that look like they've never met a customs agent. And much less ordinary goods are there as well. Curled leaves and pale roots, furs and feathers, the black glisten of beetles' wings and the ivory gleam of bone, witch-ways sold by wizened grandmothers and laughing girls, women with neat aprons or sweeping skirts or babies wrapped and bound to their chests, sleeping through the moonlit market. Quinn moves easily down the alley, receiving nods and waves and tips of more than one hat. She seems subtly different, taller, grander. Nothing about her has ever struck Beatrice as fearful, but there's always something armored about the way that she moves on the North End. Here she's a queen, and royalty requires no armor. Quinn steps aside through another door. It's only as Beatrice follows her that she sees a sign that says Araminta Spice and Sundries, and she realizes this is the same shop that she visited only hours before. Araminta Spices and Sundries is a very different sort of establishment by moonlight. There are black wax candles dripping onto bronze saucers and green bottles lining the shelves with labels like Hellebore, collected after rain, and hen's teeth. The other smell has grown stronger, wider, darker, unmistakable for anything except what it is, which is witching. Does this happen every night? Beatrice doesn't know why she whispers it. Oh, Lord, no. Only on full moons. Quinn leans an elbow on the counter as the ding of the brass bell goes 3 times. It's famous in certain circles. People come from miles away and hoard their goods and recipes all month long. A small, regal woman shuffles up to the counter wearing a wide-brimmed hat hung with lace. Her face behind the veil is all cheekbone and chin, bones and angles, but the cheeks lift in a smile when she sees Quinn. Evening, Quinn greets her. She nudges Beatrice, who lowers the dark drape of her hood. The woman stares at Beatrice for a long, still second before sighing. Oh, Cleo. Very much like a mother whose daughter has brought home a particularly unlovely pet and begged to keep it. Quinn answers with a crisp formality. The third spectacle was an ambush, and I saw at least 4 of the sisters taken into custody, including their leader, her blood sister. She tilts her head at Beatrice. When I understood what was happening, I intervened. The woman behind the counter, perhaps Amarantina, murmurs something like, obviously. With your permission, we'll stay here till dawn. The woman's eyes slide between them again, a little too knowing, and Beatrice squirms. And then in the morning, I'll take her, well, wherever she likes. The Hall of Justice, I suppose? Beatrice sighs and finds herself the object of 2 identical yellow stares. To sort this all out, I do mean. Amarantina begins to laugh, and then rolls a cackle. It doesn't stop for a long time. Oh, sweet saints, preserve us. You're going to march straight into the lion's den to do what? Ask them real nice to give you your sisters back? This, she waves a knob knuckle at Beatrice but addresses Quinn, is exactly the kind of foolishness that I was talking about. This is why we're better off keeping to ourselves. Excuse me, Beatrice says stiffly. My sister has been arrested on false charges. Well, probably false. And they can't hold a woman indefinitely without hard evidence. This only provokes an even longer, more extravagant laugh out of Amarantina. She's thumbing actual tears from her eyes by the time the laugh subsides. Amarantina turns away to face a gilded cage that sits behind the counter. She extends 2 fingers through the bars to stroke the creature inside it, a rabbit whose fur is such a deep and starless black that it seems to swallow the candlelight like an open mouth. Amarantina addresses Beatrice over one shoulder. They can do exactly whatever they want, child. I bet my eye teeth that your sister's already in the deeps. She catches sight of Beatrice's face, and the carved lines around her mouth soften very slightly. I'm sorry for it. I truly am. But it's too late for your sister now. It's not the harshness of the words that undoes Beatrice. It's the pity lurking beneath them, the terror that closes like cold water above her. If Quinn or Amarantina say anything further, Beatrice doesn't hear it. She's distantly aware of an arm around her shoulder shepherding her behind the counter and up a narrow flight of stairs, a warm room that smells of spice and skin, and a bed is spread with saffron quilts. She lies awake, listening to the murmur of the voices in the street and the ticking of a clock somewhere in the house. Too late, until Quinn's voice tells her to sleep, and she does. Beatrice dreams of cellars and locked doors and wakes to her own finger clawing at her throat. Dust motes dance above her, suspended in the sunlight. Pigeons bourbon at the window. She's alone, though there's a hollowed-out warmth in the bed beside her, as if someone has lain next to her in the night. Her spectacles are folded neatly on the bedside table, and Beatrice looks at them, picturing the hands that placed them there, feeling a dangerous tenderness creep over her before she realizes that she doesn't feel something. Her youngest sister. The line between them has gone slack, dead as a cut tendon. She finds Miss Quinn in a galley kitchen on the first floor, patting a round of biscuit dough with flour-dusted fingers. She listens to Beatrice's tearful babbling patiently, cutting neat rows of dough with a tin can. She's sliding them into the oven with an iron screed, and then she folds Beatrice's fingers around a hot mug and gently refuses to escort her to the Hall of Justice. After all the trouble that I just took to save you, no. You're going to eat your biscuits and change out of those witch robes, and then you're going to go home. Tomorrow, you'll go to work as if nothing at all has happened. But Quinn touches the back of her hand very gently. You're no good to her if you're locked in a cell beside her. Please, listen. Beatrice eats her biscuits and changes out of her witch robes. She follows Miss Quinn 2 blocks east and into the white-tiled salon, full of chattering women who dip their heads to Quinn and raise their eyebrows at Beatrice, and through the back to the door that reads, Supplies. A cool, deep smell seeps around its edges. Beatrice is not surprised when Quinn presses her scarred wrist to its surface and she whispers the words. The tunnel twists north, rumbling sometimes as trolleys or hooves clatter overhead. Beatrice keeps feeling along the line that led to her younger sister, like a woman tonguing the gap where a tooth once was. Why is it called the Deeps? She asks as Quinn pauses to scrawl something complicated on a sign on the tunnel wall. Well, because it's waist deep down there. At least after a bad rain it is, anyway. Beatrice makes a sound somewhere between a whimper and a question mark, and Quinn clarifies. They built the prison on the riverbank, where the land was soft and boggy. There's a reason none of our tunnels lead to the east bank. It sinks an inch or 2 every year. The lowest cells always have standing water in them. There's no way to get it dry or clean. I knew a man who was arrested for loitering who came out with his feet dead white, just rotting away in his boots. Quinn's voice trails into the dark tunnel. Were you, close? Cousins, Beatrice. Quinn answers with the same iron shape to her spine. Beatrice is quiet after that. The tunnel ends in a spiral staircase that narrows the arched door. Beatrice stumbles after Quinn, sun-blinded, and finds herself standing in the genteel bustle of Bethlehem Heights, half a block from her rented room. Oh, I made you coffee, darling. Babe?
Yeah.
Oh, I made you coffee.
Oh, sorry, I was out of tune. Oh, sorry, is this really loud?
No. I just didn't know if you saw that I made you coffee.
Oh yeah, I'm putting more coffee in.
Oh, okay. That's fine. I just wanted to make sure you saw it.
No, that's the coffee.
That's an additional. I can't see the
drank
cup from
half
here.
of it, then I was putting
That's perfectly fine. I just wanted to make sure that you knew that there was coffee for you.
Oh.
No one appears to notice them, and Beatrice wonders if Quinn has cast one of her strange glamours over them before she understands the door they step through is tucked discreetly at the corner of a handsome manor house, a servant's entrance. In their neat iron dresses, she and Quinn are just a pair of maids, all but invisible, nothing really. It occurs to Beatrice for the first time that there's a certain power in being nothing. She thinks of the old tale where the clever crone tells a man that her name is Nobody, and when asked who cursed him, the man cries, "Nobody," while the witch escapes. Oh, that's interesting, right? So in this tale, the witch uses the name Nobody so that when the guy is like, "Nobody cursed me," everyone thinks he's nuts. That's funny. Go home. I'll meet you at the library tomorrow. Quinn gives her last amber look and disappears. Beatrice counts very slowly to 20, and then she turns on her heels and heads due west towards the New Salem Hall of Justice. It is really smart, right? What a genius crone. Because there isn't as much a fool as Quinn and Amarantina... Because she isn't as much of a fool as Quinn and Amarantina seem to think, she stops first at a certain disreputable establishment on St. Mary's of Egypt Street. She asks for Miss Pearl and finds herself shuffled into a spare, practical powder room on the first floor. Pearl's eyes are puffed and bluish. Her nails are still grimed with grave dirt. She lights a thin cigarette as she listens to Beatrice's request and nods once. "Yeah, the bastard took Frankie too. Ask after her, won't you?" When Beatrice leaves Salem's Sin, she's a crone in truth. Her eyes are a filmy blue. Her hair is the yellowed ivory of a pulled tooth. Her flesh stretches thin and frail over her cheekbones. Some of it is clever powders and dyes, and some of it is more the words and ways a whore might use, either to attract attention or divert it. She was rather hoping to be disguised as a busty blonde or maybe a sultry Jezebel, but Miss Pearl just recommended wrinkles. "Well, men stop seeing you altogether after you hit a certain age," she says. The clerk at the front desk of the New Salem Hall of Justice doesn't even look up as she approaches, so perhaps Pearl was right to disguise her as a crone. Her remains bent over a stack of paperwork. He's scratching idly at his pimpled chin. Apparently, he's unbothered by the sickly smell that rises from the floorboards, a stagnant reek, still water, and old meat. She raps her knuckles on his desk, and he looks up at Beatrice with bored, pinkish eyes. So Pearl, the woman who owns the whorehouse, has dressed her like an old lady so that she can go to the hall. If that didn't become... It was said in a convoluted way, so I just want to make sure that was clear. "I'm looking for information regarding a woman taken into custody early this morning, a Miss James Juniper Eastwood." A dim spark of interest crosses his face. "She one of the witches they brought in?" Beatrice gives a clerk her most severe librarian's glare and is gratified to see him straightening reflexively in his seat. "What she is or isn't remains to be proven in a court of law, sir. What I would like to know is where she's being held and on what charges and in what specific condition. I am also into the whereabouts of a Miss Frankie Ursa Black and Miss Jenny Lynn." "It's not public information, ma'am," he shrugs. "Didn't look too good when they drug her in, though." Cold sloshes in Beatrice's stomach. She gathers herself. "I would like to speak to your supervisor immediately, young man. A girl has been arrested and apparently injured without due process or a fair trial." Her outrage attracts the attention of the officers lounging in the back office. One of them slouches to the front. "What's it to you, ma'am?" Beatrice transfers her milky glare to him. "I'm Miss Eastwood's landlady, if you must know, and I take considerable offense when one of my tenants is arrested on false charges." The officer grunts at her. "There's nothing false about these charges, ma'am." He scrounges lazily in the detritus of the front desk and produces a poster with "Wanted for Murder and Suspected Witchcraft" printed in large capital letters beneath a drawing of a woman's face. Her hair is an untidy sprawl of ink rather than chopped short as Beatrice knows it, but it is unmistakably Juniper. The artist has captured the defiant line of her long jaw and the wild gleam of her eyes. Beatrice swallows. "I'm not sure what this proves precisely, but..." The officer slides another paper across the desk, yellowed pages from the Lexington Herald. "Murder by magic," it reads. "Crow County veteran found dead." Beatrice doesn't need to read the article because she already knows what it says. She found out 7 years ago what Juniper was, what laid coiled beneath her skin, waiting to strike. Her daddy should have remembered it too, but maybe he got too soft or stupid over the years. Maybe one day he took too much from her, some last precious thing, and he left her with nothing to lose. Beatrice skims the Herald. "Untimely death, signs of uncanny, daughter seen fleeing the property," it says. She slides it back across the desk, and the officer shakes his head. "What kind of woman would kill her own father? Eh?" He taps the paper twice. "This'll be in the Post first thing in the morning. I wouldn't go around telling folks that you rented a room to a murderess if I were you." Beatrice notices a brass badge shining dully on his chest, showing a torch raised high, and he understands that Miss Quinn was right, that there will be no bail and no due process, that the rule of law has given way to the rule of men and mobs, that it is too late. She retreats and watches the men forget her as soon as she leaves their sight. Outside, the air is thick and gray with the promise of rain, and Beatrice tries hard not to think of Juniper down in the deeps, all alone with rising water. At least the cellar was dry most days. Beatrice doesn't know where she's walking until she's standing in the wood-paneled hall of Salem College Library, blinking dimly at her office door, her sanctuary, her one safe space. But there's something subtly wrong. It takes her a frazzled moment to realize that her nameplate, the cream-colored card that her name was on in neat script, is missing from its brass holder. Her door is locked. She stares at it for several seconds before retreating to the washroom and scrubbing the disguise from her face. Her own eyes are clouds looming back at her in the mirror. Miss Munley is working at the circulation desk today, shuffling stacks of paper in a way that is meant to communicate that she's very busy and harried, and she doesn't have time for a nuisance like Beatrice. Excuse me, ma'am." After St. Hales, Beatrice's words developed a tendency to clot and stick in her throat like sour milk. It took years to make them flow cleanly again. Excuse me, my office seems to be locked." Miss Munley doesn't even look up at her. "It's no longer your office, I'm afraid." Her voice is crisp and neat as the turn of a staple. But why?" She taps the papers on her desk to neaten the edges and meets Beatrice's eyes. "Because in light of recent information provided to us by a concerned citizen, you're no longer employed by the library." The numbness creeps over her again, the chill of betrayal. Someone betrayed more than the time and the place of their doomed spectacle. Someone whispered names and positions. And then why isn't Beatrice down in the depth with her sister then? "I see." Beatrice's voice sounds like it's coming through especially battered phonography, warbly and tinny. May I at least retrieve my personal effects?" What would the police make of her stacks of children's tales and folklores, her scribbled words and ways, her black leather notebook ridged with salt? "No, in fact, we've been instructed to inform the authorities if we even see you on the premises." Miss Munley slants an unreadable look at Beatrice and adds, "So I would advise you to take leave of the premises at once before I have to see you." Beatrice leaves the premises and she stands in St. George's Square, unmoving and unmoored. She wants very badly to go back home, but the little attic room was never really her home. Her home was always witch tales and word stories into which she could escape when her own home became too terrible to bear. It was the soft quiet of the stacks and her too small office and the scratch of her pen across the page, but all of it was lost now, and it begins, gently, to rain. Beatrice is familiar with despair. It's followed her ever since St. Hales, trailing like a loyal black dog behind her, nipping sometimes at her heels, and now she greets it calmly, almost like a childhood friend. Agnes knows despair. She first met it on the night her mother died. A black hound that curled on her chest, bending her ribs inward, and she's often heard the pad of its steps following her up the boarding house stairs. Now she feels its eyes watching her from the shadows of the mill house floor. She stands clustered with the other girls, murmuring and whispering. Annie's there, pale and puffy-eyed. Yulia's there with lips white and thin. Her eldest daughter is there, but her next eldest is missing. Caught. She fled the witch yard, maybe, struck by the summer's fever, like so many other girls. Mr. Malton glares out at them from eyes like peppercorns, small and dry. Agnes can tell he skipped his morning drink, and she can almost feel the blood thudding resentfully in his ears. You've read the papers by now. They haven't, because a quarter of them can't read, and another quarter of them can't read English, and none of them can afford the oversized special issues that the paper boys are running up and down the street, but the mill already hums and hisses with rumors. Only Agnes and the other sisters keep their mouths shut and their eyes down this morning.
There are witches walking among us once more. They caught the ringleader early this morning and a mad woman from down south, I heard, but some of them still roam free.
Mr. Malton waves a creased page of his newspaper in the air. Agnes does not permit her eyes to follow it. She can feel the soft heat of Bella somewhere north, but nothing but a cold absence where Juniper should be. Malton wheels, fixing them with his red-veined stare.
And I have it on good authority that some of them might even be standing right in front of me, posing good and honest work as a woman in order to seduce others to their cause.
Agnes does not flinch. She does not breathe. What authority, she thinks.
So I'm here to offer you girls a warning if I get so much as a whiff of witching, or unionizing, or suffrage, or any of that trash. I'll take it straight to the police, make you no mistake.
His eyes rake them, and Agnes catches a wet gleam of fear beneath all his bluster. She wants very badly to make him more afraid. What is it, sweetheart? What's the matter? Are you sad about this? Are you sad about this?
Do you need me to hold her?
Oh, she's alright. She's resettling. Hi.
As it is, he finishes, you've earned all yourselves a week without work.
Gasps and curses ripple through them. A week without pay means hungry children and cold stoves and maybe even angry husbands. Someone shouts back, "But you can't do that!"
And Mr. Malton spits back, "The hell I can't."
His nose throbs an unhealthy purple color.
The Baldwins have agreed. We can run on scabs and day workers for a week while some girls take time to consider your situation. You decide where your loyalties lie.
The mill seethes around Agnes. Women exchange bitter glances of blame and suspicion, eyeing one another as if they would gladly tie the witch to the stake themselves if they found her. Annie and Yulia are standing very still, not looking at one another or looking at Agnes. Eventually, the women form a resentful line out the door, apron strings hanging loose. Agnes trails at the back, trying to look as if she's merely worried about late rent. Just before she steps into the alleyway, Mr. Malton's hand reaches out to stop her, pressing against the bowl of her belly.
You hold on a minute, girl.
He's far too close to her. She smells the sour sweat of him, feels his breath against her cheek.
Don't think I've forgotten your little trick.
It was one of the first spells that Mags taught them. Net a leaf and a sharp needle, and a man would be too busy yelping and swearing to want you any longer. His palm is sweating through her dress.
Should I go to the authorities, do you think? Should I tell the police what you are, Miss Eastwood?
His fingers dig like nails into the swollen meat of her stomach, biting deep, just because he can, just because she can't stop him, because she's nothing, and he is something. Rage licks hot and red up her spine, followed by the sick wave of shame. What a fool she was to think that witching could even change anything. Their mother had known plenty of words and ways, and what good had that done her? Agnes swallows rage and shame, both of them, and she's grown tired of the taste of them, and answers, "No, Mr. Malton."
Good girl.
He gives her stomach a hard, careless pat, like a man might give a horse. Agnes walks blind down the alley, rain slicking her hair against her throat, and despair follows her. It's almost a relief when she feels its teeth against her throat. Juniper, however, has never met despair. She caught the glimpse of some black creature edging nearer when her sisters abandoned her, when she laid down on the fresh-turned earth of her grandmother's grave, but she's driven it back with fire and fury every single time. but now she hears its claws clicking down the cobble streets behind her, coming closer. She knows better than anyone to let the fear show on her face. The officers all around her are hungry for that fear, waiting for it to lap at her like a terror laps at a tomcat, like a tomcat laps at a bowl of milk, and Juniper declines to feed them. She keeps her eyes blazing and her teeth bared as they prop her up in front of an accordion box camera. A fist snarls itself in her hair and forces her to face the camera's glassy eye. She keeps her chin raised as they rip the locket from her throat and the dress from her back and leave her shivering in her shift. As her eyes rove across the pimpled white of her fleshed skin, skinning her. She keeps her spine straight as they drag her down the steps, past the leering greenish faces of drunks and derelicts and pickpockets and prostitutes, and they fling her into an ankle-deep water that smells of oil and shit. Juniper stands with her wet shift half slicked to her body and cold mud spattered over her cheekbone, staring into the low glare of gas lamp with her fingers curled into fists.
I know.
Is that all you got, you weak-ass chicken shit sons of a... But a hand falls against her, retching her arms behind her back. She braces her belly for the blow and prays briefly that they won't bust anything important. 3 bless and keep me, she can... What's the matter, sweetheart? What's the matter, my baby? What's the matter? Yeah. 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 Nothing's the matter. We're almost done, and then you can eat again. Hands fall on her, retching her arms behind her back. She braces her belly for the blow and prays briefly that they won't bust anything important. But the blow never comes. Instead, she feels a chilled metal press against her throat. She swears and arches against the man behind her, and she hears the rasp and the click of rust and tumbles turning a lock. And then piercing, deadening cold slices through her veins. They release her, her bad leg crumbles beneath her, and her knee splashes into the reeking water. She reaches for her own throat with a trembling finger and finds an iron collar there, locked tight. Back in the olden times, witches were punished with bridles to stop their tongues from speaking the words, shackles to stop their hands from working the ways, and collars to break their will. The hot heartbeat of magic is gone, and so are the lines that lead to her sisters. But Juniper thinks dully that it doesn't matter. They won't come for her now that they know anyway. Dimly, she hears the slosh of booted feet, low and mean sound of laughter, and then she's alone in the dark. When her daddy died, when she killed him and set fire to what was left of him so that no ghost or spirit might linger a single second longer in this world, she thought, at least, she would never be locked down in the dark again. But she was wrong. Despair creeps towards her out of the deeps and the color of the night, but Juniper does not let it take her. Instead, her voice is tingling with the trickle of water echoing against the wet stone as she tells a story. The tale of the witch who spun straw into silver. Once upon a time, there was a foolish miller who bragged that his daughter was a witch who could spin straw into silver. The king, who was even more foolish than the miller, sent his guards to fetch the girl and tossed her into a cell full of straw. He ordered her to spin it all into silver before dawn or face the stake, and then he left her alone to weep. Just before midnight, a creaking voice asked the miller's daughter, "Why do you weep so?" "Oh," she answered, "because my father is a fool, and I will surely burn tomorrow, for I am no witch." An old woman lurched out of the shadows, dressed in tattered rags and carrying a black wooden staff. A pair of rubies were set into the staff's head like the red eyes of a snake. "Ah," she said to the miller's daughter, "but I am. What will you give me if I turn this straw to silver?" With the girl's golden necklace clasped around her neck, the crone sat down at the spinning wheel. At dawn, the king was very pleased to find a room full of spun silver, enough to build a statue or maybe a ship. He was so pleased and so foolish that he locked the girl in an even larger cell the following night, and he demanded that she perform the trick again. The miller's daughter wept, and soon she heard the shush of a tattered cloak along the floor. She looked at the crone, haggled briefly. This time, when the crone sat down at the wheel, she wore the girl's diamond ring on her finger. By morning, the cell was full of silver, and the king, who was by now beginning to dream of entire armadas, locked her in a third cell, even larger still. The miller's daughter wept, a little perfunctory, and then the crone appeared, but there was no necklace or ring left for her to barter. The crone asked for the girl's firstborn child instead, and the miller's daughter, who did not want to burn at the stake, who counted her own life more heavily than that of a child not yet thought of or wanted, agreed. The straw was spun. The king was pleased, so pleased, in fact, that he made her a king's wife instead of a miller's daughter. In time, the king's wife became a prince's mother, and on the child's name day, the crone appeared to claim her debt. The king, seeing the crone with her black wooden staff, realized the secret behind his wife's miraculous spinning and spurned her, so that the king's wife lost her crown and her child all in the same hour. The woman wept, and the crone took pity on her. "If you can find my tower within 3 days' time, I will forgive your debt," she said, and she vanished. And for 2 days the woman walked high on the hills of her kingdom, barefoot and ragged, her gown stained with milk, and on the evening of the 3rd day, on the last of her milk ran from her breasts and fell like pearls to the earth. The pearls ran together, forming a line which became a pale, milky snake with red rubies for eyes. The mother, or in some tellings, the mother with a capital M, followed the snake deeper into the woods. Perhaps among the darkest and oldest of the trees she found a tower. Perhaps a fire was burning in the hearth, and bread was waiting on the table, and her son laid wrapped in black rags, sleeping gently. Perhaps she and her child lived in that tower happily ever after. Neither the mother nor the crone was ever seen in the kingdom again. Well, that's an interesting spin on that tale. That's very interesting, right? So in this version of Rumpelstiltskin, the crone actually saves her in the end with her magic. That's very interesting. I've never heard it told like that before. What do you think of that? That's an interesting spin, don't you think? Yeah. Very interesting. All right, sleepy lady. Oh, thank you. We're doing very well, Harley. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, we're both very well. We are actually going to go have breakfast now, and then we're going to go to our 2-week appointment. And we're going to get weighed and see if we got back to our birth weight. What do you think of that, Miss Lady? She thinks it's good. She would like to do that. All right, guys. I will see you tomorrow, and we will